welcome. Today's gospel is the familiar story of Mary and Martha. The theme of hospitality in this familiar story is common. It's commonly highlighted, not only in the story, but in almost every preacher's tongue on a day like today. But there are these other themes, the themes that come up, which is making choices and establishing priorities. I would be remiss to neglect speaking about hospitality from our perspective at St. Gabriel's, because hospitality is an integral part of our identity. Our way of giving hospitality is much like the way Jesus did it, in that we make sure that all are truly welcome, especially those that may not be given a place at the Lord's table elsewhere, or those who seek full inclusion into a faith community the way we do. That's hospitality, the Jesus way. If we compare the traditions of hospitality that Jesus advocated and our own way of doing it, I would say that we're close to his intention and close to his purpose of integrating people from all walks and situations of life. I would add that St. Gabriel's culture of hospitality is perhaps like what I imagine you do in your own homes when you invite people over, break bread with them and your family members. We provide the best that we can offer. That's what Mary and Martha did for their guest, for Jesus. They gave hospitality, each in their own way. The story today may steer us to contemplate whose choice was better. Martha's for wanting to make Jesus feel like a king in her home and provide him the most incredible dinner in the most incredible setting? Or Mary's for giving her full attention to Jesus as he shared his stories, his teachings, and even his presence in their home? But today's lesson is about priorities as well. And the theme that isn't commonly discussed about this passage is devotion. Our devotion to the holy, our devotion to Christ. Our hospitality to Christ requires our devotion to Christ. The visit that Jesus made to the home of Mary and Martha is an occasion to remind us that one of the most important aspects of our love for God is our devotion, think hospitality, our devotion to God. And these sisters were perfect examples of it. The word devotion means love, means loyalty or enthusiasm for a person or an activity or a cause. Devotion. However you define it and whatever your perspective may be, you will see that devotion is like a muscle. A muscle that increases as it gets exercised over time. I went to the gym today, so I'm feeling the muscles. The more we live and the more we learn, the more we pay attention and follow Christ's words. The more we commit ourselves to act like him and dedicate ourselves to living a life like his, the more our devotion will grow. I would add that one's devotion to God is a natural byproduct of one's journey with Christ. Speaking of journeys, today's story is part of the 10 chapters in Luke's gospel that are known as Christ's travel narratives. In these travel narratives, Luke talks about the works of the itinerant son, Jesus, in the 3 years of his discipleship ministry. Jesus visited, taught, and made disciples of people from every walk of life as he walked, as he went into the world. He healed, he revived, he gave hope, he spoke, he listened, he responded to everyone. The travel narratives take place where? In people's homes, on the side of the road, in the hills and valleys of Israel, at lake shores. We even have hymns about that, at the lake shore, at rivers, in places of worship, places of work, at bedsides, and even at dinner tables. We're invited to journey into these narratives with Jesus so that we can increase our devotion to the man who transformed the way that the world believed and who transformed the way that the world gave hospitality. I said earlier that the story of Mary and Martha has been used to compare the inclinations of these two sisters, sometimes having us choose one sister's way over the other even. The one who busies herself by taking care of hospitality in her home, and the other ignoring those duties of the sister to pay attention to what their guest and friend had to say. But a comparison of Mary and Martha should not be what we take away from this message, because we all have characteristics of Mary and Martha. Jesus' intention wasn't to criticize busy Martha, but to call her away from the distractedness and to help her focus on what was essential. He invited her to take her mind off important things. Hospitality is important, so that she could focus on the essential things of life, devotion to God. This story is a reminder that we need to stop, to sit down, take in the air conditioning, to listen to God. Listen to God even when we are at our busiest moments. Listen not some of the time, but all of the time. Because even when we're doing good for others, God wants us to sit at Jesus' feet and hear what the Spirit of God needs to tell us before we move on. We sometimes focus on things that we believe are important, but we may not always focus on things that are critical. So we learn from today's gospel story what was critical for whom? For Jesus. It wasn't being fed a huge meal in a great, nice, clean home. Although hospitality is important, and I keep on emphasizing that. Yes, it's important. But having the opportunity to share his love, his wisdom, by giving these sisters an opportunity to reflect with him on the critical aspects of his holy journey. That was what was critical for Jesus. Stories are critical. It's part of hospitality, sharing, being with, giving, and listening. It's like a meal, different kind of meal. It's a meal for the soul. The world we live in is full of problems, and sometimes we focus more on fixing the problems than taking the time to understand the root causes of the problems. The challenges the world is facing today don't have easy solutions. What do they require? Well, they require careful, devoted, and prayerful discernment. They also require thoughtful actions in order to respond to them from a place of love, a place of justice, instead of a place of hate and fear. So we're invited then to sit at the feet of Jesus and listen to our hearts to discern what way to respond to these issues that matter, so critically matter in the world today. Being prepared is always a good thing. Like Martha preparing a meal and tending to her home to give the highest quality hospitality to her favorite guest, Jesus. This is important, but it is more important to be fully present with God and with our family and friends when we gather together. The image of a kitchen table is wonderful, because that's where we sort of all sit around. Even when we're alone, we sit, we take the time to be, look at the cup of coffee, look at the paper. You are with yourself and others. God visits us at every moment of every day. And as some Bible lessons teach us, it is important to prepare, to be ready for the visit, and to be mindful to stop for the guest when they bring water, bread, wine, guidance, love, hope, hospitality. Amen.